Paul Levinson. He's the Director of Media Studies at Fordham University. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Bob Kohn.
Sure.
CBS conducts an investigation. After the internal investigation comes back, they're told to get rid of 4 people. They fire 1. They keep 3. Ask them politely to resign. Those people are still there. Now, you and I both know if GM had done this, if Exxon had done this, if Enron had done this, if Microsoft had done this, and refused to fire the people that were told to be fired in an internal investigation, CBS 60 Minutes would scald them alive. What's going on here?
Well, if any of those corporations did this, the CEOs would be gone from those corporations. That would mean Les Moonves, I think, or Andrew Hayward, who's the president of CBS News. But I think what's going on today with Josh Howard, one of the CBS employees who's refused to resign, he was asked to resign and refused. Well, either he's sincerely trying to clear his name and reputation, or it's all about his package, I should say severance package. That is how much you pay off a former employee or employee to keep their mouth shut after they leave. Now, the New York
wait, so hold on a second, Bob, though. This shouldn't be about this guy deciding when he's going to leave. They had an independent inquiry. The independent inquiry said there were 4 people responsible for this scandal, responsible for smearing a president 50 days before an election, and CBS is allowing the employee that put that on the air to decide his severance package and when he's going to leave. What don't I get about that?
Yeah, well, they're also looking at the legal issues here, and we haven't seen the contracts that Josh Howard or any of these other employees have with CBS. They might be concerned about breach of contract, and if they got breach of contract, they get a lawsuit. With a lawsuit, you get depositions, you get to look at the emails, and this whole thing falls apart. So CBS management has to be careful in how they let these employees go. Ideally,
because if they upset these employees, and all of a sudden you have a lawsuit, and you get to see the email trail, then you find out that CBS is lying about it. You find out that maybe Andy Hayward knew a lot more about the story. You find out that actually Dan Rather knew a lot more about the story. You find out that people going to the very top of CBS News and CBS Inc. lied to the American people. Come on, that's really what's going on here, isn't it?
That's exactly right, because it's not going to be the journalists now or the bloggers trying to find out what the truth is. It's going to be lawyers who are going to be finding out. And you know what? That independent investigation, when they had all of those meetings at CBS, they didn't have any transcript of those meetings. It wasn't recorded. It wasn't videotaped. They didn't have a court stenographer there. It was all handwritten notes. So we really don't know what the truth is. And until this lawsuit occurs, we won't know.
Professor Levinson, let me ask you to respond to the point I made earlier.
Yeah.
Let's say, for instance, Microsoft had a lawsuit against. Hold on a second.
Sure.
Microsoft had a lawsuit against them. They were told to get an internal investigation started up to find out what happened. They conducted an internal investigation. It comes back that they should fire 3 or 4 of their employees, and Microsoft refuses. What would CBS, NBC, ABC, and other news outlets do to that big corporation?
Well, let me give you a real example rather than a hypothetical example. You know, the 1968 election was between Richard Nixon and Hubert Humphrey, and a little bit before the election, Drew Pearson, a very well-respected columnist, found out that Nixon had been seeing a psychiatrist over many years. And Drew Pearson didn't quite have as much testimony and explicit proof of that as he wanted, so he held up on the story until after the election. Turned out the story was true. Turned out that Richard Nixon was elected president. And guess what? Most historians now agree that part of Nixon's problem as president, which led to Watergate, is he in many ways was psychologically unfit to be president.
Professor, what does that have to do with my question?
What it has to do with your question is your approach to CBS is to assume that they're completely wrong, that they lied to the American people.
It's a forged document.
The document may be forged, but we don't know whether the story is true or not.
Hold on a second. So you're actually going back to the beginning, and you're actually saying that this story may end up being true. You sound
Yes.
like Dan Rather.
Well,
do you
that-
got
you-
a
you know-
cocktail parties with
Joe,
Dan Rather on the
that's not the
Upper
first-
West Side of Manhattan?
I'm flattered that you think I sound like Dan Rather, because Dan Rather has been a great journalist. And the fact is, we don't know whether the story is true or not to this day. And the report that you
Bob
mentioned
Kohn,
specifically...
okay. We've got to go back to the beginning, Bob Kohn.
Right, exactly.
Do we still not know whether this is true or not?
It says
Joe, I
nowhere
think
in the
if Paul
report
if Paul is making any point at all, it's that the cover-up is more important than what originally happened. We know that Mary Mapes and Dan Rather, they were politically motivated to get out and to believe these memos were true documents, okay? But I think that's beside the point. What's happened today is really Josh Howard's complaint about what happened in the 12 days after the story broke and after everyone realized these were forged documents. I don't think we can go back to square one. These were forged documents. Everybody knows it. What's important here is Josh Howard has to clear his reputation.
Well, the issue is not whether they were forged documents. That's just one of the issues. The ultimate issue is whether the story is true or not. And I think the American people are interested in
Look,
that.
without the documents, there's no story.
No, there was a witness who said that the document was false.
Professor,
that's all conjecture.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second, guys. Professor, I'm interested in the truth.
Good.
And I'd like you to answer my question.
Okay, I will.
Let's say that Microsoft
Right.
or General Electric or the parent companies of this network, let's say those two corporations were involved in a scandal. They decided to have an internal investigation to figure out who was responsible. And 3, 4, 5 executives were cited. Let's say these two corporations decided, the heck with it. We don't care what the internal investigation says. We're not going to fire them. You and I both know that CBS, 60 Minutes, NBC, ABC would rip them apart. Why should it be any different for big media than it is for other big corporations?
Good question. I'll answer you. CBS, like all other media, is trying to report the truth to the American people. They and their reporters make mistakes. Well, how do I know that? Because I've been watching CBS for 40 years, and this is the first time where there's ever been an allegation that they haven't reported the truth in a major way.
No, it's the first time they got caught.
Let me finish. Well, you know that, I don't. I don't know if there's any other time that anything like this has happened. And so I think it's completely appropriate that when you want to encourage,
they fire the 4 employees?
I'll tell you why. Because there are two kinds of errors that a journalist can make. One is publishing a story that's false. The other is sitting on a story that's true. And CBS is right to be very careful about not making either kind of mistake. And to just wholesale fire people is not always the best answer.
That's not the issue.
All right, gentlemen. Okay, we're gonna have to leave it right there. The bottom line is this, friends. I promise you, if Bob Kohn and Paul Levinson, we appreciate you being here. But, friends, I promise you this. If any other big corporation in America, be it Exxon or Enron or Microsoft, had an internal investigation, were told by those that they called to conduct the internal investigation to fire 4 people, they didn't fire those 4, the media would be all over them. But for big media, there's hypocrisy. Why am I telling you that? You know that. But big media doesn't know that. So if you're listening tonight, CBS News, this is why middle America hates big media.